We are exactly 14 days away from this very moment when the Chicago Bears kick off versus the Minnesota Vikings. The 53-man roster is starting to take form. We're going to be talking about it all here on CHGO Bears After Dark starting right now. Welcome back to CHGO Bears After Dark, presented by our good friends over at Circus Sports Illinois. Make sure you're hitting up Circus Sports Illinois all day. Sports betting the way it should be. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr. Alongside me, as always, here on CHGO Bears After Dark is Shayne Marsaw. Phil Ottochian will be joining us here in just a little bit. Adam Rank has soccer duties here tonight. But he will be joining us here in a couple weeks because this is actually kind of exciting to say. But today is our last CHGO Bears After Dark of the official off season. The next After Dark we do will be the day after week 1 versus the Minnesota Vikings. And that'll be on a Tuesday night. So set your schedules now. But because there's a holiday next Monday, this is actually our last After Dark of the offseason. Shayne, we've made it. We've finally made it.
I know, and I'm still the only one on time on this show.
Wait, it's preseason for everyone, I guess.
Yeah, right? Yeah, they're still trying to figure it out. No, it feels good, though, man. I'm excited. We invest a lot of hours into each other in terms of, January through midway through July, waiting for football to be back, and now we're through the practice games and cut down days officially tomorrow. I know we have some that are leaking in now, but now you're within reaching distance for the real stuff, and that's when the party begins.
Yeah, the party certainly is going to be starting here soon. It definitely will for our tailgates as well. Quick reminder, I'll give you a reminder later in the show, but I guess while we're on the topic, we definitely have a new deal to sign up for here at CHGO Sports. Football club offer. This is a diehard deal for all of you guys. Base tier, $59 for the year, get you a free shirt out the gate. But if you upgrade to the tailgate tier for $89.99 for the year, you get 2 free tailgate tickets. And that's every single year you renew, you get free tailgate tickets and a free shirt every year you renew. So I'll tell you right now, it pays for itself at allchgo.com/diehard to sign up. So let's rewind before we look ahead to the Minnesota Vikings matchup here in a couple weeks, since I won't, at least on these airwaves, won't be able to talk to you until after the game is over. So I think we can look ahead to that, even though it's 14 days away later in the program. But let's rewind back here to training camp and preseason. Obviously, the Bears and the Chiefs played on Friday night, and there was a lot in that game, Shayne, to take from good and bad. And I just think that game encapsulated a lot of where this Bears team is at and how this coaching staff approaches things. So let's start there. Your biggest takeaways from Friday's game itself.
They still have work to do, and that's perfectly fine. The overreactions, from the Bills game when everything was right to the overreactions because Caleb got sacked. It's, again, I say this, I think I've said it every single show, Greg. Bears fans, the players are either elite Hall of Famers, franchise caliber, or they're terrible. There's no in between, ever. You never hear anybody say, well, that's, he's an okay player, that's where he should be. And that's what the Bears are. Listen, there's gonna be bumps in the road. And with Jaden Daniels getting all the positive pub and Bo Nix, of course, it's going to rub Bears fans the wrong way. But flush that, let that stuff go. Caleb is progressing. I don't know if you got a chance to watch Tim Jenkins talk about, show his breakdown and stuff like that. And he was showing some things that were missed, and he's pointing out incremental things that are progress that maybe the everyday fan doesn't really understand. And that is all you can ask for. They can't. Yes, I understand it wasn't against the first team and all of that. My point of view on all of this is you got to stack. You want Ben Johnson and himself said it. Our team is going to be playing their best football in December and January, not in September and October. And that's what you need to grasp. There's going to be bumps in the roads. There's going to be big plays. There's going to be bad plays. Got to stack on those good plays. And what it comes down to, more so than anything, is you have a head coach that is all about accountability. When Caleb held the ball a little bit too long the other night, what did he say to the reporter? I call that good pass pro, right?
Right.
And that's what you want. That's what Caleb wants. That's what Bears fans should want.
Yeah, no question. And you're right with Tim Jenkins. Robert Nash here in the chat says Tim Jenkins has great breakdowns. Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of different avenues you can go to for different breakdowns. Tim certainly does a great job. Brian Baldinger also pointed out the good and the bad, after Friday night's game. And he really highlighted how Caleb was staying in the pocket, on certain throws. And you could see that where trusting that interior of the offensive line. And that's without Joe Tooney. You're talking about a left guard and Luke Newman, 6th-round pick who certainly, had some pretty impressive reps there, bowling over a few guys at times. So, it's it's one of those things where I think Bears fans, I keep seeing fans say well, I'm going to wait until all the starters are out there, or I'm going to wait until, week 3 of the regular season. I would just caution all Bears fans to understand that what we're seeing here and what you've seen in terms of reporting through camp of some of the operations not looking clean and delay games, I just think that we're going to have to accept that that's going to be a part of the journey here to start the year. They're not going to go away just because the season has officially started in 14 days. These are things they're going to have to continue to work through. And then the question is how long before it becomes unacceptable for the coaching staff? I mean, clearly right. Ben Johnson, Declan Doyle spoke today. They hold a pretty high standard for what their expectation is for this offense. So, after the game was over, I think most Bears fans were pretty excited. They come back, Tyson Bagent leads them to a comeback, 3 touchdowns in the second half. And you also like the way the first team offense bounced back in the first half as well. It started ugly, but then they get a field goal against the first team defense against the Chiefs. I think people kind of forget that because I keep seeing a lot of people in the comment sections to our shows and post-game shows and some of the stuff on Twitter. Well, it was against the backups. Well, yeah, the 2-minute drill was against the backups, but the field goal drive before that, which was 12 plays for 61 yards, it didn't result in a touchdown. Caleb tried to fit it into Rome into double coverage when maybe he should have hit DeAndre Swift over the middle. But regardless, I thought they really bounced back on that drive as well. And that was against the Chiefs first team defense. But that being said, when we talk about the expectation level for this coaching staff, Ben Johnson immediately goes to the postgame and says, I'm very disappointed in both our first team offense and first defense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think one thing that is critical, and I think it was Robert Nash in the chat brought it up, and I was going to mention it also, it's critical this year that you have the early bye week. So they're not tied in to anything. So whoever gets named left tackle, that's not something that you're going to ride out until week 12 with. So if it's Braxton Jones has a handful of weeks as a dress rehearsal at left tackle. And if we still see the issues along the way, guess what's going to happen at the bye week? He's going to get put on the bench, and it's going to be the next man up. That's what's going to happen. So that's what's good. That's the one good thing about having the bye week early this year. And listen, man, we haven't had everybody out there. Like you said, Joe Tooney's going to make Braxton Jones better. It's just that's how good he is. So that's a benefit. And you have a good play caller in Ben Johnson that's going to help out Braxton Jones also.
Yep.
So we'll see how it goes. Now, was there a lot of vanilla the other night? Of course there was. And should you be able to execute vanilla more so than, opening up everything? Yes, but they're still early in the process. There's going to be there's going to be mistakes in week 6, just like there's mistakes in week 12 and in week 17. And we can't overreact to every single one. And unfortunately, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's fans. That's not just Bears fans. I think that's all NFL fans. The NFL does this to us. They wind us up.
Oh yeah,
and have us all dialed up about everything, throughout every little nuanced moment of the offseason. And by this point, we're seeing red, waiting for regular season to start. So we're dying for every bit of information that comes across. The other half of the ball, we always focus so hard on the offense, and rightfully so. The Bears, I think we're all waiting for the Bears offense to become what the rest of the NFL has been for quite some time.
Yep.
In this day and age of modern day NFL. But the defensive side of the ball, Shane, on Friday was probably the first time this whole summer where you were like, uh-oh. You had guys like Nahshon Wright, who, I honestly listed as one of my training camp MVPs. I gave out like a bunch of MVPs, so it wasn't just one. But if you had to name 3 on each side of the ball that were training camp MVPs, Nahshon Wright was one of those people on my list.
Who did Carm give MVP to? Does anybody have any idea?
Yeah, who got that? No idea whatsoever. It probably rhymes with
Pete Sampras.
Yeah, Pete Sampras. That's right. Pete Sampras. Absolutely. As he's at the US Open, taking his much needed second vacation in the last 2 weeks. So no, I kid. I love him. Hopefully he's having a lot of fun and he can stay there as long as he likes. But I had Nahshon Wright as one of my training camp MVPs. He had a brutal Friday.
Yeah.
Right. And so to me, when you looked at what the defensive effort was, here in in the final preseason game against the Chiefs, and the pass rush or lack thereof, is there any concern? Because when you talk about Joe Thuney being missing on the offensive side of the ball, you didn't have, Grady Jarrett, you didn't have Tremaine Edmonds. Obviously, Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon have been out, so there's also been pieces missing on the defensive side of the ball, but you can't be in love with the effort you saw on Friday.
No, and I mean, one of your, I don't want to say, huge money, but one of your big signings in Adengbo, you show him on tape, and there's not a lot to like there, especially last week. I mean, there's a lot of standing up straight, getting almost no pressure whatsoever. And those things have to change. And this is why Phil and I were pounding the table, all off season. If you look back in the Chicago Bears history, going all the way back to Jerry Angelo and all, they rarely address defensive end via the draft. The Bears have always been, he's a good pass rusher, he might be available and he's in free agency or we can trade for him. Then they go do it. I mean, Adewale Ogunleye, and you go to Khalil Mack, Montez Sweat, and that's all of that. And that you have to have some belief in Dennis Allen that he's going to be able to get these guys cranked up and run some stunts and some pressures from the corners and the safeties and stuff like that. But to me, Dio, having him outside, I think he's probably going to end up being most effective in like your NASCAR package if you reduce him down inside in certain situations. And that's not great when you're giving a guy $48 million and that's what he's going to bring to the table. So
yeah, I've tried to be fair to Dio Odengbo at camp because, the trenches are just a very hard thing to evaluate in 11 on 11s when, the pass rush is not.
But effort's not hard to evaluate. Right. And you're not even seeing that.
But even then, I try to be fair to it because they know they can't hit the quarterback. So how can you truly go all out when you have to be kind of careful with the way you finish your rep? If you're a complete maniac and you're, some of these types, if you're Akeem Hicks, no regard for human life as you're smashing Kyle Long and trying to get, and that you might be liable to take the quarterback out just because you're reading and reacting. And so I always gauge that based off of that idea, like, hey man, you got to be fair to this. But at the same time, that being said, he has not flashed much at camp. And so, I've mentioned it a few times, but I wasn't going to go as far to say like, this is bad. Like he's not going to work out just because
I'm not there either, but the way to me that it's trending on tape, like what you were saying is absolutely valid, Greg, in camp, in practices. I understand that. But like the other night against Kansas City, you have a guy just extending his arms out and is straight up. Well, you don't have to throttle back against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
You can go sack Patrick Mahomes. Yeah,
Right.
you might get a flag for it. We all know how that goes, but still you can exert the effort there. And to this point, I'm not seeing it yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully when the bullets start flying for real, that changes. We'll see. But it's not a great look so far.
No. Real quick before we take a quick time out, and Phil Ottochian should be joining us here just in a few minutes. Who are your winners and losers from the summer, if there's any that stand out to you from preseason and training camp?
Loser, Ozzy Trapillo. I think that it's pretty evident when you're a second round draft pick, and based on my tape study and Phil's tape study, we both looked at him and did not see left tackle. But we're also not employed by the NFL, and Ben Johnson and those guys are, and they believe that he could do it. I think that they had everything set up for him to just get the job. Not saying that he wasn't going to be able to compete, but I think he had a pretty clear pathway to assume the left tackle starting duties if he showed some competence there. And it's pretty clear to this point that they're not happy with him at left tackle either, because I mean they have him over at right tackle, where you just drafted a guy in the top 10 3 years ago.
Right.
So that to me, he would be be a big loser. A big winner, you have to put Tyson Bagent in there, and it's not, that is obviously not a shot at Caleb Williams, but he secured himself. It's not, the generational wealth that you're seeing a guy like Josh Allen and those guys get, but from where he came from and the deal that he got in an offense with Ben Johnson, that he should be able to, if something happens and Caleb gets hurt or whatever happens, he should be able to come in and thrive in. And he's got some financial security now. So to me, clearly he's a winner of training camp. He's grasped it. Has he looked perfect? No, but none of these guys nobody's looked perfect throughout the preseason, but that's where I'd go. Loser, Trapillo; winner, Bagent.
Okay. Well, yeah, certainly deservedly so for Tyson Bagent. Big week for him, obviously, with everything, signing a contract, 3 touchdowns and a game-winning touchdown at the end. It's Ja'Day Walker, who could potentially make the roster here.
He better.
When we find out here in the next couple of days, and we'll discuss some of the cuts that have been happening here as the number starts to get whittled down towards 53. We're going to be looking ahead to the Vikings as well, and we're going to be bringing Draft Dr. Phil Ottochian to the program here when we come back in 2 minutes. So please hit that like button while you're hanging out. Appreciate everybody joining us here on a Monday night, as we're here every Monday night on CHGO Bears After Dark. So plenty of Chicago Bears talk to get to. 2 minutes away, we'll come right back and talk some more Chicago Bears. Appreciate you guys. Whatever the sport, the app to bet is Circa Sports Illinois. Circa Sports, it's sports betting the way it should be. Circa Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. Bet on all your favorite teams in every game this season. I'm talking spreads, props, futures, or in-game. Circa Sports has you covered. Fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. Baseball is winding down to the end of the season. Cubs trying to get on their final push here, just 5 games back of the Milwaukee Brewers. You think they can win the division? Throw some money on it down now. See if the Brewers fall apart at the end. Maybe the Cubs can have a little late season surge here. And download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Circa Sports Illinois. Sports betting the way it should be. Make sure you throw down a few shekels on the Bears. against the Vikings here on Monday Night Football as well. And while we're talking about here the regular season, obviously some big news for us here at CHGO Bears. We are headed to Viva Las Vegas once again, compliments of True Fan Travel. We're going to be taking over the Strip as the Bears take on the Raiders. September 25th, we'll be getting in on Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'll tell you what, Bears fans, we had all these rooms at Mandalay Bay completely sold out, but don't you worry. We've added more rooms at the Luxor right next door. And so we are going to continue to sell tickets to this event because they are going to be hooking it up at True Fan Travel. And you also get tickets to the game. That's very important. If you look on secondary markets, if you're trying to go out to Vegas for the Bears Raiders game, not easy to come by. So don't miss this unforgettable experience. Don't gamble on missing it with the ultimate fan experience. Book your spot now at truefantravel.com. We're going to be having so much fun. Live shows, tailgates, the whole bit. See you there with True Fan Travel. That's right. We're back here on CHGO Bears After Dark. Joining the program here, as he always does on Monday nights, is Phil Ottochian. How we doing, Phil?
Doing good, Greg. How are you?
Doing great, man. Just to kick right into the football conversation here, obviously we were talking some winners and losers from, preseason and training camp. And, I have to ask you, Phil, just from where we started in preseason game number 1 with Ben Johnson's decision to not play the starters, then to fast forward all the way to preseason game number 3, where you see Caleb Williams play the entire first half, the first team offense play the entire first half, and then Tyson Bagent goes all the way until the final whistle of the fourth quarter of your third preseason game and leads the Bears to a comeback win in a pretty dramatic fashion. You're not going to see too many endings like that in a preseason game. So I'm just curious from your perspective, from where we started with some of the criticisms we had for how Ben Johnson was approaching the preseason to how he ended it. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a check in the box of a coach that understands it. And we haven't had that because he understood the situation where the offense, albeit whoever was making a mistake here, there, and everywhere, they needed to come together and kind of put together something that's going to build confidence. So you as a coach have to take some stance there in regards to whatever sort of plan you had as far as how many plays, and go with your gut and say, you know what, we're going again until the half. We're going to get the 2 minute and we're going to build off this. And he did that. Was, it's a testament to Ben Johnson. So my reservations or doubts in regards to him, Greg, were answered in that moment. He did the right thing by putting them out there, and those reps go a long way. It's not about the blog boy haters that are going to be just in the garden of against Caleb no matter what. It's about improving your offense and your football team and getting the maximum amount of situational football as you possibly can in those moments. And it was brilliant. And then to do it again on the flip side, this is our backup quarterback. He's not going to play, hopefully, at all. And when he's going to play, he's going to need simulated reps. So he did the same thing with Tyson. You just gave him an extension. You understand what he is and what he's going to bring to the table. You put him in those situations. Can he lead this football team to victories? You go out there and you see what he was able to do with his arm and his ability. And you go away always planning what is best for your football team. And that right there, I left, okay, all the questions I had of Ben were washed away. He's not listening to anybody but himself. And that's really the most important thing I pulled away. I was so happy about that. I was happy with how Caleb performed down the stretch. I think a lot of hate has been on him, unwarranted, over and over. He goes out there throwing dimes. Odunze drops one, then makes up for it. Now kid, you got to catch the ball. He goes out there, makes a play, the next play. Then he makes another play in the end zone. You get out of there. You accomplished what it is you want. You got those answers that you needed. And really that's awesome for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, it certainly was. And when you talk about the simulated scenarios and reps that you got for Caleb Williams at the end of the first half and then Tyson Bagent at the end, and I'll see fans say, like, at the end of the game, well, that was against four stringers, guys that won't even be in the league. There's pressure to that moment. And
100%.
That's Tyson Bagent potentially, as you pointed out, Phil, potentially his last throws of the year. Caleb Williams played all 17 games last year. He was the first Bears quarterback to do that since 2008. Now, can he do that 2 years in a row? You don't. I mean, that's certainly that's the goal for every team, but it's a hard guarantee to have in this league. Most teams have to use their backup quarterback at some point during the season. But at the same time, those very well could be Tyson Bagent's last live throws he gets until next summer. And so for 100%. That moment, for Ben to recognize that, I think was huge. And to see the sideline so invested into how that game would end spoke to the culture that Ben Johnson is trying to bring here to Chicago. And ultimately, I also think that was a great simulated moment for Ben Johnson. And people will say, well, he's been the offensive coordinator in Detroit for the last 4 years. He's done 2-minute scenarios, not as the head coach. So as we have pounded the table, and yeah, I'm going to take another victory lap here. We all three can, because that first week of the preseason game, where we were catching a lot of heat from everybody that was watching this show for the whining and griping that they want to, frame it as, for saying, hey, we don't agree. The starters need to be playing against the Dolphins, and they didn't. That's fine. We will applaud Ben Johnson for that course correction, as we like to say.
Absolutely.
And now you see the reasons why it was so important. And you saw the 100%. Cultivation of an offense that really figured things out. And even in the second preseason game, you saw in the second half, Declan Doyle and Al Harris get to call plays for the offense and defense. Declan Doyle talked about that today, about how it lended him some perspective. He's been preparing for that moment for a long time, but there were things that happened that he didn't realize. That's only going to help him become a better OC for Ben Johnson. These are all things I can never emphasize it enough. These are the things of why don't ever sell me why a joint practice or air reps before a preseason game are more important than the reps you get in a live game in preseason ever again. We'll do these shows for years to come, hopefully, and I just don't want to hear it. I'll just clip this part, and next year when we get to this same nauseating conversation, I'll just play this clip so we don't have to argue about it anymore.
No, you need to, right? Because I think it is very important. I know I take a lot of the heat, and so does Shane, but it's very apparent that Bears fans, and I don't know if you want to live in misery or commiserate in misery. All I know is that the Bears have been soft under Matt Eberflus and Matt Nagy. And it happens to coincide with having soft practices. You've been there, you've talked about it. And then leading into bubble wrap season, where you're not playing your starters and you think you're a kicker away from something better. That doesn't work. There's a reason why New England plays their starters, why Patrick Mahomes is out there in a third preseason game, because they need to get those layups and those moments that you can't simulate in practice in, so they can build their confidence, but also have that stuff on tape so you can teach. Like, this is what's going on. This is wrong. That is something that all fans just skip over. It's teaching, even on this level. You're putting a new offense in, there's new coaches, there's new things that you want to incorporate that build off of one another, that you need to get on tape. So if we do make a mistake, which is bound to happen, then you could go over that as a group or in front of the team or in your positional group to fix it. And that's how you were getting better, by just doing it in practice and no, coach, can you put him in a 5 technique so we could do. That's not a simulated live rep. It's just not. So these things are very important to jumpstart your season.
Yeah, absolutely. Shane, you had something to add there?
No, I just think, Phil's 100% correct. And I said there's such a double standard, even, with Bears fans and with Caleb haters and stuff like that. Caleb goes out and throws a touchdown against the second team defense from Kansas City. That's what it's led with. Oh, it's a beautiful pass, but it's against the second team. Oh my God, Tyson Bagents looked brilliant all
It's third
preseason,
string.
and he's playing against third and fourth string. Nobody ever says that. And that's not a shot against Tyson, but I'm just saying context matters in all of this. And like
and that's narrative spinning too.
right,
Right.
100%.
100%.
But the
premeditated thing.
Like I kicked off the show with, Greg, the biggest thing that I take away with, and I know Phil's going to agree with me because he's been pounding the table louder than anybody for a decade plus on this, is the accountability. Now, Caleb wasn't perfect the other night, and your head coach went right up there and said it. He said it in the post game presser. I think it was Jason Leisure brought it up. He had 5 seconds to throw on that, and he's like, "Well, I'd call that good pass protection, right?" That he's not saying that about his offensive line. He's not doing it to give them praise. He's saying it to Caleb. That's not good enough. We need better. And that is what's going to make this team what we want it to be. Is that's where it all starts, is the accountability from the lead dog each and every day.
Yeah, no question. No question. It's accountability has been refreshing. The attention to detail is extremely encouraging. The physicality that's been demanded at practice has been long overdue. And so when you add these things together, because I was having a little back and forth with Mark Potash, who's a friend of the program and a good dude. And he's been a big supporter of me when I was coming in here like 8 years ago. And I know people have all these different opinions of Potsy because of his, his approach to comedy and humor on Twitter, but he is a very good dude and a very good reporter. But you just kind of have to understand Potsy's perspective, having covered this team for 40 years. He leads with a little bit of snark, as a lot of the writers do here in Chicago. But I was talking with him and John Greenberg from The Athletic on Twitter about this, and they were bringing up like old, press clippings, old newspaper articles, old Windy City Gridiron articles, whatever, old tweets of people, running these same narratives. Mark Trestman's changing the culture. John Fox is changing the culture. Matt Nagy, who's in our chat, at least the fake one, is changing our culture, and pointing to those things as why that should be some evidence of why Bears fans shouldn't overhype what we're seeing from Ben Johnson right now. But from my standpoint, I just disagree with that notion. Like, okay, we haven't seen what good quarterback play is here in Chicago. Great quarterback play is here in Chicago. We haven't seen what great offensive coaching is here in Chicago, but we know what bad coaching is. And yes, it's after the fact, but we've seen where these coaches have failed and the mistakes they've made along the way. So yeah, maybe it's taken a decade plus of failures through a lot of different coaches, but I think I've had a more broader vision of why those coaches failed and why it does feel different for Ben Johnson. Ultimately, he has to prove it just like everyone else. But Phil, it is one of those things where it's like, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. He still has a lot to prove here, has never even coached a regular season game yet. And still, I think there's enough breadcrumbs there to leave you at the very least encouraged by what we've seen so far.
I think those guys taking old clips and whatever, obviously I'm not seeing it, is a byproduct of being neglected by coaching for the last 2 decades, because you said it in your stance here. Accountability is showcasing what you are and having the team reflect that from you as the coach. You're in charge. Nobody else, not the offensive line coach, not the defensive coordinator, not George McCaskey, nobody else. When the games are on the line, everyone's looking at you. And you haven't had that alpha male that led the locker room in front of everyone and said, this is me. My reputation is on the line here. We are going to do it this way. And I am going to love each and every one of you if you do and believe in this culture. And if you don't, then get the heck out. And we're going to find the players that do believe. And until you have that person that stands in front of the locker room and goes with their gut, that goes with their football instinct, that's going for the jugular, like you have not seen that here. Ben Johnson, we just started the show in saying he clearly decided in that moment that you're going back out and going against the 2-minute offense, that you're going to do it. That's what a leader of men does. The whole locker room wanted it. Caleb wanted it. That's what this should be about. And we have not seen that before. And I don't care what anyone says. Again, I agree with you. Shane and I have been the biggest, because we're apparently, I'm Dr. Doom and he's Death Squad or whatever in the chat, that we've been so negative on the Bears and everything. And we've defended every point.
Yeah, they've had so much success. What's there to be negative about?
They have no ground to stand on.
I was defending Wiederer over this because, like, every time Wiederer gets shots at him, you know, me and Wiederer have certainly had our back and forth and our disagreements, but there will be times where Wiederer puts out a tweet that gets everyone pissed off, and then I'll have people in the chat or in the comments of his tweet like tagging me, like, this is why Wiederer sucks and you're great, Greg. And I'm just like, all right, slow down. Like, Wiederer is a good reporter. That is not debatable, in my opinion. He's a great writer. He's a great reporter. He may not deliver it in the way, the messaging in the way you want, but he does do his job well. And then it's like, well, it's all doom and gloom. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, guys, he's been covering the team for almost 15 years and they've never been good. So what do you want from him? You know, like they're doing their best to do their job. And trust me when I tell you this, the three of us or anybody else that covers this team, that fans will never believe this. And I've been on both sides of this aisle, and I will say it with 100% confidence. I'm telling you, the three of us or anybody else in this industry, it benefits all of us more to 100%. Cover this team positively and a team that's good. So all this narrative from fans that think that they'd prefer media would prefer negative clicks and prefer to trash the team. I'm sorry, it's wrong. Every single one of us and everybody in this industry, and I don't care what team you're covering, gets more money in your pocket from the team being good versus it being bad. This beat, whether you like them or not, is begging for this team to be good.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's just, listen, people, when there's change, everybody wants to assume that the change is for the positive. And with the Bears, there's been a ton of change and there's been very little positive. You know, I always go back to when they drafted Kevin White. You're like, all right, we have our wide receiver one for at least the next 10 years. You're saying that to yourself on draft day. Well, we saw how that played out. Bill pointed out very early on with Matt Nagy, who got coach of the year in his first year in Chicago. He's like, yeah, I know you guys aren't going to believe that he's not the guy. There's some major red flags. Craig, you went through it with Phil. Like, come on, Phil. You know what I mean? Yep. That's just, and that's the way the fan base is, because you're looking for something positive to grasp a hold of. It's like this with Caleb. I honestly feel like there's so many people that want to believe in Caleb, but they've been beaten down for so many years. They're just expecting the negative to come through. You know, Caleb's career is over with some of the people in the chat here after 17 games, but then they'll defend Justin Fields, who's played in 50. He just needs to get to a team that wants him, right? The team that drafted him in the top 11 didn't want him. The team that traded for him in Pittsburgh didn't want him. The team that gave him $20 million in New York didn't want him though. But now next year when he's on another team, it's this same old thing over and over and over again. You want the positivity, but you're scared of it also because you don't want to get hurt again.
Scared of the truth, and scared of the truth at times too. It's just one of those things where, I think that, we as fans just have to keep an open mind to all the different reporting. And yes, it's okay to say, I'm in a wait and see approach. I want to hope for the best, as a fan. So I'm not going to immediately go down the gloom and doom until it's proven. But at the same time, sometimes there is writing on the wall that needs to be called out. And that's why earlier when we were talking, Phil, about Ben making that adjustment from preseason game 1 to game 2 and game 3, that's encouraging. That's showing you the breadcrumbs to a coach that's, able to adapt, holding players accountable. You can say it at, the owners' meetings, you can say it at OTAs, you can say it the first time you talk to your team, in front of that, when you meet with the team for the first time in April. But then when it actually comes down to that moment where you have to specifically hold someone accountable, like Luther Burden on his first day out on the practice field, or Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, if you're Dan Rochar and you're saying what their technique needs to be better about, or how the first team offense and first team defense came out and played against the Chiefs. I think like those are the moments that define you as a head coach. And like last year is a perfect example of this. Everyone wants to point to the Hail Mary as the keystone moment of failure for Matt Eberflus, but no one remembers that literally 2 series before that Hail Mary, Tyreek Stevenson poked a player on Washington in the eye. And no one remember, and he got a 15-yard penalty for that. And guess what? He did the exact same thing against the Texans week 2. Yep. And it was not policed by your head coach. And it led to a moment that now no one will ever forget. And so that's when you talk about, a team takes on the identity of their head coach, and what you are as a team then is defined by how that coach holds those players to that standard. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch it yet. And I know you're you hate the Eagles out there, where you live, Shane. I know your family's big Eagles fans and stuff, but the America's Team on Netflix, I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to watch it.
I haven't.
It's very good. And maybe just, I think most sports documentaries can be good in that way, but it's very well done. And I'm like halfway through it, and they're kind of walking you through the Jimmy Johnson era. Now I'm to the Barry Switzer era. And you really see like a team with this loaded talent, but how the identity of that team is kind of formed through all the craziness that's happening with this owner and Jerry Jones. And he's also playing GM, and then the coach being a lightning rod and Jimmy Johnson. And then it transfers over to Barry Switzer and the adjustments they had to make. And so I thought that was a good representation of what it really is like to go through that locker room. And so to your point, Phil, when you talk about the identity, I think those are the things that Ben Johnson has to work through right now, is him trying to get players to buy in, to take on the identity that he has in mind for himself, but not just for himself, but for the team.
Well, I just want to say this on top of that. I know you might have to go to a commercial in a second, but the reality of a standard has to be set, and it has to be set in stone. No matter who or what player, Caleb, Jalen Johnson, Montez Sweat, if they cross that, they're the example. If a coach allows that and fan, you can't do that, you can't, then that's why you don't win. There's a standard that Ben Johnson should have, and everybody knows, and nobody should deviate from that. And if they do, they are confronted in front of everybody. That's it. And if that means he's benched, he's benched. If that means he's suspended, he's suspended. Until you get that personality leading the Chicago Bears out of this doldrum of mid and lower then you're not going to be where you need to go. And I think Ben is setting the standard in his personality, and he surrounded himself with good coaches that are also going to send that same message. And then you're going to see the success moving forward. But that has not happened here. And a lot of people just want to see talent and more talent. But really, the coach has dropped the ball endlessly here in having talent, but not having a standard. And that's the truth from what I've seen on tape to how they've performed on Sundays. The coach, and it hasn't been since Ditka that we've seen that standard.
We are 2 weeks away from this very moment. 2 weeks away. It'll be the end of the first quarter of the Bears Vikings game on Monday Night Football. How about that? That's pretty exciting. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please hit the like button on the show. We're rounding third here on CHGO Bears After Dark. And when we come back, we'll go over some of the cuts that have been made and maybe some cuts around the league as well, if you guys are interested in any of those to potentially bring on to the Chicago Bears roster. So those of you in the chat that have any thoughts on that, please drop your comments in and we'll read those as well. So 2 minutes away, hit the like button. And when we come back, more Chicago Bears football talk. Hey, Bears fans, want to remind you that now is as good a time as ever to become a diehard here at CHGO Sports. You head to allchgo.com/diehard to sign up. A lot of great opportunities, including our newest deal we just dropped. And that's right, it's the football club offer. You get two different options. If you get a base tier, $59 for the year, includes a brand new shirt with your offer, and that's a really good deal. But the better one that you got to be looking at is our tailgate offer, and that includes 2 free tickets every single year you sign up. As it renews, you get 2 tickets to our CHGO Bears tailgate, and of course everything that else that comes with it. That's for $90 for the year, marked down from $30 for the original price tag. So it's well worth the price of admission. It literally pays for itself as soon as you sign up, because you get the free shirt, you get the 2 free tailgate tickets, and then you get all the exclusive written content from Adam Johns, who's doing an incredible job since he started with us, Adam Hogue, Mark Carman, Patrick Norton, all the way across the board. And that doesn't even include all the exclusive written content that you get from all the other sports that we cover here at CHGO Sports, from Cubs, Blackhawks, Bulls, White Sox, Sky, all the soccer teams, all the way across the board. We have you covered here at CHGO Sports. So sign up. Like I said, limited time offer. You get a free shirt as soon as you sign up. These are some of the shirts that have dropped here on our new release. There's 3 options at your disposal, and we've got plenty more as well. And as I said, this tailgate option is certainly one to be worth checking out, because our tailgates this year are going to be second to none. You go to allchgo.com/events and you can sign up for our tailgates. But if you come a diehard, you can get those deals right now to your doorstep. So hope you sign up. That's right, here on CHGO Bears After Dark. Hit the like button here. We're going over some of the players now that have been released as Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson try to work towards their final 53-man roster. Maybe the biggest news of the day, Zay Frazier, who was spotted at practice last week in uniform but not practicing, goes on the non-football injury list, reserve non-football injury list. And so, whatever's going on with him, the Bears have continued to say it's for personal reasons. So obviously it has to be something serious. So hopefully, everything's okay with him and his family, but obviously he's going through something. Some of the waived players going through it, I'll just give you some of the notables. Power Eccles, linebacker, quarterback Austin Reed, running back Ian Wheeler, who I think we're all big fans of, and tight end Joel Wilson, who some people thought coming out of minicamp might make some noise at training camp. That didn't exactly pan out that way. Some of the released players, cornerback Trey Flowers maybe was one of the more surprising ones, if you will, depending on how you had your 53 broken down. Running back Royce Freeman, who they just brought in a few days ago, was also released. And then a few days ago, some other guys that were, Terrell Smith, cornerback, put on IR for the year after sustaining that knee injury. And then some different guys, Chris Glazer, offensive lineman, who you saw get some early action in preseason work. Samari Torre, the wide receiver, also cut. So then it, really is starting to, get whittled down. Guys, any of those names stand out to you when you hear that? And what are your overall thoughts, Shane? I'll start with you. When you look at some of the decisions Ryan Poles has to make in terms of, figuring out this whole 53-man roster.
I don't think that there was any surprises there. I know that there's probably a lot of people upset about Ian Wheeler, but we've said it. Listen, you have to have the ability to pass block as a running back in Ben Johnson offense, and he's struggled with that mightily. I mean, I think he has shown some improvement, but the benefit of that is there is some upside there with him, but I don't think that the Bears are in any fear of losing him to waiver claims. So I think it's pretty simple. You release him and you bring him back and put him on the practice squad. I know the Bears intend on doing that with Wilson also, but beyond that, you got to throw in there too. Jeremy Fowler reported today that the Bears are exploring trade options with Jordan McFadden, the offensive lineman, which to me is kind of funny. If he's got trade interest throughout the league, well, I don't know. It's almost
I think that just speaks to, we were talking about this on the afternoon show. It just speaks to how much of a premium it is to have any kind of depth on your offensive line. It's like Jordan McFadden, what? But at the same time, look at the Eagles just traded for an offensive tackle from the Jaguars. And so I think it's just one of those things where
they're familiar with it. I mean, he'd been there for 3 years already, so they're familiar with him. But I don't think that there's anything shocking. To me, this comes down on the 53, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but is what they're going to do at wide receiver with Walker, because to me, he deserves a spot. He deserves a spot over Tyler Scott. He deserves a spot over Devin Duvernay.
I totally agree with Shane. I think, listen, watching the other night, the defense, I think people should be, instead of talking about Caleb, talk about the defense. And this guy below me, Ryan Poles, and what he's done there has been atrocious. The edge rushers, the down linemen were getting pushed around. I'm more concerned about that than I am about the offense. I like the kid from McFadden. I thought he stood out on tape at guard. I think it would be foolish to trade him looking at this whole thing. I know the number is the key here, 10. They're going to keep 10 offensive linemen. I thought he was a standout. So, but again, sometimes Ryan Poles takes political moves. He puts politics first. Well, I drafted this guy high. Like Tyler Scott has no business making this football team or Duvernay over Walker. It's very clear.
Well, going back to the offensive line thought though there, Phil, because I think this is an interesting conversation, because were you impressed by Luke Newman with what you saw?
I was, but I don't think Newman is as polished and as strong at the point of attack as on tape as 74
as McFadden is. Because what I'm getting at here is when you talk about it being a numbers game of 10 offensive linemen, I think the problem they're running into is how many tackles they have to keep and how many of them aren't even worthy.
Another problem with your terrible, because I don't want to say terrible, GM. I want to say worse, but we're on After Dark, so I won't. He is not handled drafting offensive linemen well. We've now drafted another soft, upside, often injured player at tackle. And he's a right tackle now. Was he going to change? You're making these decisions in these moments when you have the players that are there. I know they were going to take Banks first overall. And the Saints took him beforehand. I know this for a fact. Good. That was good on them. He was the best tackle in the draft, according to me, and what I saw. And then the number 2 tackle in the whole draft for me was Ursary, who you had a shot at taking in the second round. Instead, you took a tight end, a receiver, and then you traded for two guys that are often injured and out of position. What are the Bears' biggest needs? The same as they were in the offseason, right, Shane? It's the same thing.
It's true.
Your pass rusher and left tackle were your biggest needs going into this season. And you ignored both of those things when you had 4 picks in the top 72 of the draft.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not going to say that left tackle wasn't an area of need to upgrade, but when you say it was their biggest need, I think they had 4 offensive line spots going into the offseason that were all,
I'm talking about going into the draft. They handled that in free agency.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So you've set your table, Greg. It's like, okay, everyone's coming over for Thanksgiving dinner. Greg sets the table. He's got the corn, the mashed potatoes, the green bean. Jenny, where's the turkey? What? Right. I thought you got the turkey. That's Ryan Pohl's GMing job. It's not Ozzie Trapillo's fault, but it was so clear that he's a right tackle. He's not athletic enough to play the left. Can he do it? I think he can.
In a pinch, yeah, but his upside is not at left tackle.
It's not there.
Which is disappointing. So
what are they going to do, Greg? They're going to move. I'll call it right now. Darnell Wright will end up having to move to left tackle because he's an athlete. He's strong, and that's what they're going to do. And this is the Chicago Bears under these GMs that are soft like this.
Well, I certainly hope that that's not what ends up happening, because then I've never liked the idea of trying to fix one position by changing two, and we've gone through this a few different times on the interior of the offensive line in years past. So let me ask you this, Shane. Dan Skipper was released by the Detroit Lions, obviously, played under Ben Johnson and has familiarity as a guy that can play left tackle there. So are you going to just wipe the board with some of these backup tackles that you have currently on your roster, cut a couple guys, and just let Dan Skipper be your backup left tackle, or stick with what you got right here on the roster now?
I mean, I don't see the upside in Dan Skipper. I know a lot of people are excited about him with the Ben Johnson trick plays and all of that.
He's 6'8".
Yeah.
Was he 6'9"? He's big.
Yeah, he's huge.
Tall. He's tall. They already got a 6'8" guy, so.
But yeah, he's a
Gary
familiarity is
Gary Ross in the chat saying you can bring Skipper onto the practice squad. That would be interesting if he were to make it there.
That's a good place for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he a starter?
No.
But again, you got Braxton, who's soft.
And Detroit doesn't even think he's a backup.
Right.
By the way.
And they're hurting on their
exactly.
Line
so
right
yeah. And he's 31 years old.
Right.
Yep.
So I mean, yeah, it's some different options here. It'll be interesting to see if Karan Amagaji makes the roster as on the final.
How could he not make the roster?
Yeah, if Karan doesn't make the roster, it's crazy.
It's a joke that if he doesn't
explain that. I mean, either one of you take this shot at it. Yeah,
go ahead. Been hurt and he was raw coming out, and his rookie season was a wash. So now you're just done with him. You have to let him get healthy, and yeah, it's taken longer than we expected, and he came back and then he got injured again. But you can't write him off after
the problem, Greg, is the GM drafted the injured tackle. Now you're gonna cut him or waive him when he's got the most upside out of all of them. Benedict, all of them. He's the most upside. So now you got to use that, Clay, and hopefully he'll benefit from that. You can't say, oh, he's always injured. That's what they drafted, and that's what you drafted. So Karan follows the same path. That's what I'm saying about this GM. And it's unfortunate. It really is. But that's where the Bears are, and they don't draft defensive ends in the top 3 rounds. So now you have this Deo problem. What is he doing? Nothing. He's Israel Adonijah and the Muhammad kid that they signed from the Colts who's going to set an edge is not giving you pass. It's the same story of GM Ryan Poles. And a lot of people want to just give him a pass, just like George. No need to extend this guy, but they did. And now we're here.
Yeah, we're here, and hopefully Ben Johnson is somebody that can help Ryan Poles along the way, and they've made some different decisions here that we'll find out if they're good or bad here as we're heading to overtime. So make sure you become a diehard at allchgo.com/diehard to sign up, and it is officially overtime here on CHGO Bears After Dark. Yeah, Phil, you mentioned that Ryan Poles does not draft defensive ends. Shane, what was the stat you had for?
Yeah, so since he's been the general manager of the Chicago Bears, he's drafted 2 defensive ends, and he's also drafted 2 punters. And out of those 4, the highest drafted player was Torrey Taylor, the punter.
And that goes to show you. And so when Bears fans are saying, "Hey, we need help with the pass rush," I think that certainly points to it.
Yeah, and but again, Greg, if we do this, we do the background work and look into all of this. The Bears just don't do it at all. They very rarely. I mean, yeah, Michael Haynes, and you did it again with Leonard Floyd and stuff like that. There is outliers, but yeah, Dio is DeMarcus Walker. Well, that's an amazing miss.
Yep.
I mean, DeMarcus Walker never lived up to what DeMarcus Walker was supposed to be here. He was all talk and all hype, and that's the problem. I mean, like I said, I think you're going to see Dio probably be more valuable to them when they reduce him down. But you just gave him $48 million, and for what? That's why. And again, got to repeat myself again. This is not an indictment on Colston Loveland, but this is why Phil and I, the way that the board fell, that's why Phil and I were drafting Mykal Williams at 10. Because you can cross that off the list with a high upside defensive end. The tight end class was extremely deep through 2 and 3 rounds, and you have Cole Kmet here that you extended already. It's just
could have got my boy Fannin Jr.
In a lot of positions, they're just chasing their tail.
And it's not just chasing your tail, but gambling. You're gambling. Like last year at this time, they took a gamble and they said, all right, we're going to draft Rome Odunze in the top 10, and we're going to hope we can hold over for the year with the offensive linemen we have. And halfway through the season, that gamble busted very quickly. Trying to gamble on one more year with Nate Davis, trying to gamble on one more year with Tevin Jenkins. It did not work, right? And trying to gamble with a stopgap, Coleman Shelton as your center did not work. So now this year, maybe you're not taking as many gambles on the offensive line, but you are taking a gamble on, okay, let's see if we can get through one more year with Braxton Jones, right? That's I think their thought process. We fix the interior of the offensive line. We're going to draft skill guys in the first 2 rounds in Luther Burden and Colston Loveland, who have looked great. They have looked very good so far. Time will tell if that's what pans out in the regular season. But they're saying, okay, we're going to draft those guys because they have immense talent, but we're going to gamble that Braxton can hold us over for one more year and then address that position next offseason. We'll see if that gamble works out.
Yeah.
Big
gamble. I go back to building a football team.
Gamble didn't look good on Friday. The last 2 preseason games for Braxton.
You don't build a football team outside in. You build it inside out. And Ryan Poles has failed to do that. I could be your Dr. Doom. I don't care, fans, but the proof has been in the pudding. Your defensive tackle, unnecessary, Shamar Turner is often injured. Guess where he is? Injured. Trapillo, injured.
Trapillo's not injured.
Trapillo's not injured right now.
Trapillo's not injured.
That was his story in college. Now he's got to play the right tackle.
No,
I don't think he was injured. Colston was injured
twice. They had to move him because he was playing left tackle. Then he had to go to right tackle. Trapillo. But anyway, And then you got Turner, who had a rod inserted in his leg at defensive tackle. You draft him. Then it seems to be par for the course with Amagaji injured. You draft him in the 3rd round. You're not putting the emphasis on, and then they go out and have to sign free agents to fill the interior, which they did. You traded for Tooney, traded for Jonah Jackson, and signed Dahlman. You rebuilt your interior, and you're in the draft, and you're drafting skill players, Greg. Instead of improving, you knew Braxton Jones was hurt and often hurt, who also was drafted by Ryan Poles.
Mm-hmm.
And you skipped over left tackle after Banks went. You gambled. The fact that they passed on Ursary, I don't know how. It's like anybody passing on Marino to me. It didn't make sense to me. You can't do it.
The first Ursary to Marino comparison we'll have here on the pro. It's fine. No, I'm teasing, but no, I understand.
You know how I love offensive linemen.
You give me offensive linemen or give me death is what you once said. As a bug flies into my studio here, give me offensive linemen or give me death. As the Bears were approaching to draft Tevin Jenkins. And hey, at least there they tried it. It didn't work, but I know that you appreciated the effort.
I did. I thought they should have played him at tackle and left him at tackle instead of putting him in a guard where he gets injured, which he did.
Well,
that's a whole nother show.
I mean, we certainly can, relitigate all the different moves that Ryan Poles has made throughout, his tenure and how we've gotten to this point now. But obviously we've hit overtime here on CHGO Bears After Dark. We can go a few more minutes because I did want to, like I said, Phil, to start the show. The exciting thing about this episode of CHGO Bears After Dark, it is the last one before the regular season because next Monday is a holiday. So unless I'm incorrect in my programming scheduling for next week, I don't believe we have a CHGO Bears After Dark for next week. So that means the next one we do will be the night after the Bears take on the Minnesota Vikings on the Tuesday night. So set your schedule reminders for that. But as we finish this up, and Phil, I'll start with you and then I'll finish with you, Shane. Looking ahead to the Bears versus the Vikings, as now it's basically bye-week game prep mode for the team to look ahead to this Monday night tilt on the lakefront. J.J. McCarthy making his first career start for the Vikings with Kevin O'Connell, and then a tough defense with Brian Flores as their defensive coordinator. J.J. McCarthy, will get his first live reps when you talk about not playing guys in the preseason. J.J. McCarthy only played the first preseason game, so that means it'll be 30 days in between preseason game number 1 and the next time he gets a start here in 2 weeks. So I do think that that's a big advantage for the Bears there. But looking ahead to this matchup, how are you hoping that Ben Johnson approaches this? Because it's a tricky one without really knowing the true identity of how your team wants to play football yet.
I think it goes on to the defensive side of the football first with Dennis Allen. You have to come out here and do what everybody talks about Flores doing. You're going to attack J.J. McCarthy and give him every kind of different look and blitz and go after. You're going to have to stop the run and force this kid into those situations where he's got
just like Flores is going to do against Caleb. It's the same game plan.
It starts there. Honestly, skip over what the Bears and Ben are going to have to do is honestly play the game the way Ben does. I think Ben has answers to this kind of blitz game, and you have a better quarterback with the Chicago Bears. I believe that you have the complete advantage over the Minnesota Vikings. In all reality, on paper, you have the advantage. Your defense is the thing that I'm concerned about, the pass rush. And again, Dennis Allen being vanilla in preseason. Hopefully you come out. Obviously, you haven't seen Jalen Johnson. You haven't seen Kyler Gordon. Those guys matter, obviously. on your defense and what it is you're going to do. So it starts there for me. That's where the game initially, because it's always going to take offense a little bit more time to get underneath them, and don't listen to the national media with their panic buttons and their hot topic issues because they need to get clicks. Defense for the Bears is going to be key in this game, and the Bears run game. How do they handle that? Who's making the roster? How are they going to handle that whole thing is going to be key to me. I thought Swift looked good the other night. Decisive. He ran hard.
Yep.
Dropped his pads on that 3rd and short. And we obviously didn't get to see Monin guy. I don't know the story of Rashawn Johnson. I don't believe Homer should make this football team. I don't see what anybody else talks about this guy. I don't see him as a great special teamer. I don't see anything he does on offense very well at all. So, again, we'll see where the running backs are. Do they pick up another running back? I know Estime got cut. I was a big fan of him coming out of Notre Dame.
Cam Akers also cut too.
Who was that?
Cam Akers.
Cam Akers, another hard runner, instinctive runner. That would be a great pick.
And that's what they've been looking at. They've been looking at but Britton Brown has stepped up.
Britton Brown should make this football team over Rashawn Johnson.
Swift and Brown were the only 2 running backs at practice today.
I like Britton Brown a lot. Decisive, has good vision, able to see the cutback, drops his pads, gets skinny in a hole. Love that.
Yep. So Shane, your final thoughts here as we're looking ahead to the Bears Vikings tilt 2 weeks from this exact moment. We'll be approaching halftime of the game. So I just keep saying these things because it's exciting to say.
I think Phil hit it, man. That's what I want to see from Dennis Allen. I want to see Dennis Allen dictate terms. I don't want to see them come out and sit back. That was with Flus, and even, when you go back to Lovie Smith with the bend don't break. That's how you get a guy like JJ McCarthy lathered up. No, you dictate the terms. You bring the pressure to him, and you let him see what he can do with that pressure. And hopefully that is the game plan. It better be the game plan, or I'm going to be pretty upset. But I think Phil hit it out of the park there. Dennis Allen is going to be, and it's going to be the same type of thing that Brian Flores is going to do to Caleb.
Yep.
I'm gonna throw everything at you. I'm gonna dictate the terms, and you have to prove to the world that you can figure it out.
Yeah, and everybody talks about how they're gonna stop JJ McCarthy, but I did see somebody earlier in the chat talking about how they're gonna stop the run game, and I'm definitely with people on that as well, because in 2 games last year, Aaron Jones had 22 carries for 22 carries for 160 yards and a touchdown in one game. And then he also had 18 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown in the other. So nearly 200 yards of rushing for Aaron Jones. As many years as he's been in the league, he's certainly been somebody that's been a thorn in the side for the Chicago Bears. So slowing down that run game or just completely stopping that run game and forcing JJ McCarthy to beat you, I think is going to be the biggest key in order for the Bears to win, 2 weeks from this very moment. So we'll find out. It's going to be exciting.
I thought Caleb played well against the Vikings both times last year, watching the tape.
Well, the certainly at home he played well, and the at Minnesota wasn't as great of a showing, but at home he was 32 of 47 for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he certainly made some plays, and Ben Johnson also has had Brian Flores' number here as an offensive coordinator. Obviously it was with Detroit, and so it's going to be totally different with, a new roster and everything else, different quarterback and all that. But both the quarterback and your offensive coordinator have had some success against Brian Flores. So that's encouraging at the very least. So it's exciting. It's going to be here before you know it.
College to be there with you, Greg.
Yeah. Phil is going to be at our tailgate. That's right. If you come over to allchgo.com/events, you can join Phil and I at our tailgate at the corner of Wabash and Cermak. And another quick reminder, if you want to sign up to become a diehard and you use this football club offer, you can get 2 free Bears tailgate tickets as soon as you sign up and a free t-shirt with some new shirts dropped. And you can pick any shirt from our locker room, but these are the 3 newest shirts that we've just dropped here this afternoon. So yeah, Phil will be at the tailgate. I'll be there bright and early on Monday afternoon, and we'll be kickstarting a great regular season of coverage here at CHGO Bears, and we appreciate every single one of you hanging out. So please hit that like button because the next time we will see you all, it will be for a recap of week 1 of the regular season. So enjoy college football this week.
Yeah.
And then next week, the big dance, the NFL is finally here. Exciting stuff. So thank you to Phil Ottochian and Shayne Marsaw from the Tape Never Lies Network. And of course, thank you to every single one of you in the chat. Once again, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you tomorrow as we continue our coverage. 2 more practices, for the guys, Adam Hogue and Johns and Patrick Norton will be there covering. And then we will have a post-practice show at 5 p.m. Central tomorrow. So make sure you tune in for that. And as I always like to say, keep your head up, Bears fans, and always bear down.
Bear down.
We all silly like the mayor.